It's definitely not too early to talk about the research paper. You have assignment 3, which is due November 8th, the end of next week. And that requires you to use 3 sources, 2 of which actually can come from the textbook. The other one you have to find on your own. However, the sources do have to be documented according to the MLA system of documentation. So I want to go over that a little bit. First, let's talk about how to format the research paper. And I imagine for most of you, this is just a refresher course. And so far, most of you have been formatting in the correct way. But I do want to go over some expectations with you. First of all, standard margins all the way around, 1-inch margins, page numbers at the upper right-hand corner. You can do that automatically in Word. Double space between double space throughout the paper. No extra space between paragraphs. And I'd like to show you actually a little tweak that you might need to make in your settings. If you go to the paragraph tab in Word, which is at the bottom here, and you see that the line spacing is here, and sometimes it defaults to multiple, and you don't want that because that will leave extra space between the paragraphs. You want to have it on double, and you want to make sure that you indent each paragraph, and that will set you up correctly. Now, MLA does not require a cover page, but it allows instructors, of course, to require a cover page. And I do ask for one, and it really contains the same information that you see here. This is from the Little Seagull Handbook. This is page 161, and you can see that this does meet the requirements. You have the running head here with your last name and the page number. Easy to set that up in Word. The cover page should have the same information that you see here on the first page of text. Your name, my name, the course and section number, and the date. On the cover page, the title should go directly under the date. You don't need to come up with a particularly clever or fancy title, but it should be something other than Assignment 3. Follow the directions in the Little Seagull Handbook. Center the information on the cover page. And let's now talk about how the system of documentation works with the MLA format. Some people seem to have the impression that MLA documentation is a complicated and difficult, mysterious process. And really nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, it's very simple, especially compared to the old system that was used when I was coming up, which was footnotes. Footnotes were complicated. First of all, you had a superscript within the text, then you had a footnote at the bottom of the page, and then you had a corresponding works cited page entry at the end, and all of this had to be coordinated, and you used Latin abbreviations such as IBID and OPSIT and LOCSIT and all kinds of things. Plus, we were using, you may have heard of them, typewriters, which did not, you could not block and cut something, so often you had to start the page over if you made a mistake, and you actually had to calculate how far down on the page you could go. before you needed to put the footnote in. So it was some pretty tricky stuff that we had to do. But MLA and APA, for that matter, which is very similar, are really very, very simple systems. There are a lot of different permutations of the basic style, but all you need to know is where to go to find the correct model. There are two important parts or elements of the MLA and APA system of documentation. First of all, of course, is the in-text citation. And the second part is the works cited page. The in-text citation, it's simply a very brief, often parenthetical reference with basic information that directs the reader to an entry on the works cited page where the reader can find complete information. The second is the works cited page, which contains the complete information on the source and enables the reader to go to that source. The most important thing for you to understand about in-text documentation is how these two elements work together. In the MLA system, the author's last name is typically the first part of the in-text citation. The page number is typically the second part of the MLA in-text citation. The citation is placed in parentheses with no internal punctuation or P for page after the source that you have quoted or paraphrased. Now, it's a simple system, and I want to show you now a couple of ways that can actually be made even simpler. And that is, first of all, you can incorporate the last name of the author in your own sentence using a signal phrase such as, excuse me, Murray says, or Slaughter asks. If you do this, you do not need to repeat the name of the author in a parenthetical reference. Secondly, if you find the source on the internet, there may or may not be page numbers in the document. There are sometimes page numbers. For example, if you're looking at a PDF or you're looking at a print version of a journal article that reproduces in facsimile the print edition. But if there are no page numbers, which is really the majority of cases of what you'll be doing, MLA now says, in a slight change from prior versions, MLA now says that you do not need to count pages, you do not need to count paragraphs. So what does that mean? You're done. If there's no page number, all you need to do for the in-text citation is to identify the author within your own sentence, which is the best practice, rather than just putting it in parentheses. You want to tell the reader right away who you are quoting. Now, the second part of the system, the works cited page, and if we go up here, actually, let me show you the Little Seagull Handbook on page 130 gives you the core elements that are in a works cited list. Now, core elements means that not every element listed here is needed in every works cited page entry. For example, if it's not some kind of an anthology or other work requiring an editor, there is no name of an editor. There may not be a version number. If it's a magazine or journal, do you need volume or issue numbers? But here are the core elements, and as many of them as apply would be given in this order. So you start with the author. Okay. Ideally, the author's last name serves as the first element of the citation. Now, in many cases, you will not be able to find the name of an author on a web article. However, usually you can trace the article to a sponsoring organization. For example, let's say you're working with a statistical evidence that's provided by the government. Government agencies typically issue reports that are not attributed to an individual. However, you can use the name of the organization as the author. So it might be, the American Medical Association, or it could be the National Rifle Association, or the NAACP. Those can all be used as organization as author. So that's the element you want to shoot for. If you cannot find an author, first of all, you should question whether or not you have a credible source. Because if you can't trace the information to either an individual or an organization, it might be a little questionable. So you want to take a pretty hard look at whether that qualifies as a credible source. But if you believe it is a credible source, you have reason to believe it's a credible source, you want to use it but you can't find the author, then you do start off with the title of the source. Okay, so that would be the first element if you don't have the author. And these are in order. Then the title of the container. Now this is an interesting and great word that MLA uses to describe a publication that includes smaller pieces. Let's say a magazine which contains articles, a book which contains short stories, a book which contains poems. These are all the containers. It's useful to use that terminology also in explaining the difference between using quotation marks and using italics for titles. Because what we do is we use italics for the container, for the magazine, for the book, for the title of the television series. We use quotation marks for the title of the episode, or the title of the article in the magazine, or the title of the poem in the anthology. Okay, so it's a useful distinction in a couple of different ways. Again, you don't need a lot of the following ones. You need the date of location, and you need perhaps most importantly, you need the location where the reader can find this source. And again, if it's online, the location is going to be a URL, a permalink, or what's called a DOI, which are sometimes provided with scholarly articles. Again, not all the information with all works cited page entries. What makes this system work is the following rule, which you need to always keep in mind, and that is that the first element of the in-text citation, okay, which we just said would typically be the author's last name, must match the first element of the works cited page entry. So if you're using the author's name for your in-text citation, the author's last name has to be the first element in your works cited page entry. If it's not, if you use the title, let's say, for your citation, and then you use the name of the author in your works cited entry page, works cited page entry, how is the reader going to find that entry? They have to match up. That's a critical point. Now, here I also have to tell you to beware of citation generators. Citation generators are those templates. What are the names of some of them? Bib, something bib, and there are a couple of them out there. And I'm not saying not to use them. I'm saying that you are ultimately responsible for the accuracy of the citation and the works cited page entry, and for making sure that the reader is able to locate it. Citation generators will sometimes, because of the way the templates are set up, give some very odd, erroneous formats. For example, let's say you were taking information from the Bureau of the Census, and you enter the information in the citation generator, and I have seen this on works cited pages where it comes out as census, comma, B, period, as if there was a person called B Census that wrote the report. I've also seen repetition, particularly of titles, because the same information is entered twice in two different places on the template. So just remember, you are the ultimate editor, and that citation generators are not always completely accurate. The works cited list should be alphabetized, and it should also use what is called a hanging indent, and I want to show you how to do that if you're not already familiar with it. So these entries actually are not, strictly speaking, correct according to MLA style, but I just want to show you the technique for doing a hanging indent. So here, if we look at this first entry, it should be Blanda, comma, Sean in MLA format, but this was not part of a research paper. This was for other purposes. So let me just show you how to do a hanging indent. So what you do, first of all, is block the entry. Go up here to paragraph where we were before to set the line spacing. Click on that and come down to here, and there is a section for indentation, and under that there is a drop down under the word special. And if you click on that, you have two choices. What first would be ordinary indent, which is the default, and second would be hanging indent. So look what happens when you click hanging indent and then OK. You see what it does is it puts the first line flush left against the margin, and all subsequent lines are indented. Now, why do we, you sometimes wonder, are these just silly arbitrary rules somebody puts in there to drive students crazy? The answer is no. There is a good reason, actually, for doing it this way. I don't know if you can figure it out on your own, so I'll tell you. And that is because when you are going back to look for a particular entry, when you have a hanging indent, it highlights and makes it easy to find the author's last name, which is usually what you're going to be looking for. So it's another way of making it easy for the reader to locate. But once again, I want to emphasize that whatever the first element of your in-text citation is, that must be the first element of your works cited page entry. I want to make a couple of other comments. One is that there's nothing mysterious. It's very easy. And the Little Seagull Handbook provides you with models for all types of sources. And let me show you that briefly. Let me show you that page from the Little Seagull Handbook. So this happens to be page 139 of the Little Seagull Handbook, and you see that here are some of the types of sources that you would frequently use. Article in a magazine, popular magazine. It shows you how to do it if you get that from a print version, which unless you're looking at it in facsimile online, you're probably not going to use. But here's what you do if you access that article online. So if you can follow directions, if you could follow a model, you can do MLA. All you need to do here now is to find the correct source. So take a look at it and familiarize yourself with the different types of sources, and you never need to memorize any of these formats or even the core elements. All you have to do is come and find the correct the type of source you're using and follow the model. So I'll show you an example here. Number 19 might be very useful to you in other courses. For example, in English 102, if you should be taking that, where you'll be using an anthology of literature. So if works in an anthology are number 19. I should say the works cited page entry is formatted with the information in model number 19 on this page 144. So all you have to do is follow directions. So I want to just close with a couple of suggestions and a warning, actually, another warning. And that is this. A URL, that is the website address, is never a correct part of an in-text citation. It can and often should be part of any works cited page entry for a source that you have located online, but it is never part of the in-text citation. So each semester, I see URLs used in citations, sometimes as the complete citation. And I have to immediately conclude that that student has not made the effort to understand the basics of the MLA system and how it works. So please be aware of that and look over the section on MLA in the Little Seagull Handbook and understand the resources that are available to you on questions like should you use numerals or numbers? Do you spell out the I shouldn't say use numerals or numbers. What I meant to say, do you spell out numbers or do you use numerals? By the way, the answer is you use you spell out from under 10 and 10 and above. You use numerals. But anyway, use numerals or numbers. What to capitalize? When are abbreviations acceptable? These are all questions that you can find the answers to in Little Seagull Handbook with a little bit of effort. Okay, but the thing is, it pays off because your grade is going to reflect your diligence in following MLA style and the conventions of standard English. Now, there's one other resource, of course, that I haven't mentioned yet that you do have available to you, and that's me. So let me know if you have any questions. And good luck with your paper.